Welcome back to Data Nerds. I'm Mike Brown, joined by,
Pat Healy.
and this week I'm bringing some, I guess, stuff we've already talked about before. But I did some, I'll I'll call it like baseline screening for some like semi-pro / elite athletes that like elite runners that we're working with.
Mike, it's just
Just to,
refurbished. It's just refurbished material.
yeah, it's I mean, it is stuff that we've talked about before, but I guess again not in this context. Like the all this data is from someone who's run 14:08 in a 5K, 30:31 in a 10K, so he's pretty quick.
For the people who don't know, Mike, what's that like per mile?
14 something is, I mean, it's significantly less than 5-minute miles.
Yeah.
So
just some frame of reference.
Yeah. The world standard is 13:05 or something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say like sub 13:07.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty quick. I also realized that like we really haven't talked about like testing setups much. So that's also the pictures that you're seeing here. Can you see my mouse cursor, by the way, Pat?
Yes.
Cool. So I spent one day just like trying a bunch of different setups, and then taking pictures of them. So the 4 tests that we did with this person was knee extension, knee flexion, adduction, and abduction. Talking about, I mean, I've talked about this knee extension setup a lot before, just on the squat rack, trying to get 90-degree line of pull from my shin, and my knee at a 60-degree knee flexion angle, belt to keep my leg down, leaning my back into the squat rack. So then I keep it stable. I took a picture of the knee flexion one, and then actually changed up the position. So what's tough about knee flexion is the optimal length tension relationship is when your hip is in 90 and then your knee is in 30 degrees of knee flexion. So it is hard to get a nice 90-degree line of pull. So I just have it like around this J hook, which isn't the most stable thing. And I also don't like, I mean, you can see these dumbbells around the little platform that I have here, because I have had people like pull themselves forward because their hamstrings are so strong. And then I also like I don't like that my back is just like free floating here. So I've changed this setup. Instead of just being free floating, I kind of like come 90 degrees over. So then I am sitting on the box between the two edges of the squat rack, like you can see here. And so like I would be sitting in this position facing this the other post of the squat rack. It still doesn't help with the thing being pulled forward, but it's slightly better. So then like you can put your back on this. Again, there's not a great setup for hamstrings, but it works. So that's the setup I did with this person. I just did this and then put it in between the squat rack. Abduction, so this is the setup, just laying down, like using your arms to make sure that your body is not going to move. I like doing on the floor because then you just say, keep your heels on the floor the whole time and then just like squeeze in as hard as you can. Both sides chained to to the squat rack. It is a kind of and not safe for work setup. But but it works well enough. And so then for this person, I tested the right side and then just like flipped the setup, and then tested the left side, expecting there to be a fairly good symmetry, because I don't really expect there to be much asymmetry, because whatever side is weaker is going to limit the whole system, or else like your whole body like turns. Then the abduction is just, I tried playing with like doing one side at a time, but again, I felt the doing bilateral like this, I got a much higher number, obviously, than unilateral, and I just felt like unilateral was way more influenced by the like stabilizer leg than uh, it was with adduction. So I just opted for single abduction measurement and just hope for the best there. Does all that make
Makes sense.
sense? Cool.
Makes sense.
So that's, oh, what just happened? Okay, get out of here, me.
Oh, get rid of that.
Okay. So then here's all the data. So starting with knee extension, these are the max values from the 3 tests that we did. You had a 92% limb symmetry. Normalized peak torque to body weight was 2.7 Newton meters per kilogram on the right and 2.49 on the left. To me, the quad and hamstring numbers were like the most important from these. Like they were the furthest off from like quote like ideal numbers that I would want to see. Then hamstring, like knee flexion, was 91% symmetry, 1.92 Newton meters per kilogram on the right, and 2.1 Newton meters per kilogram on the left. So just to put some context to those, I know we've talked about these before, but for the quad the torque that I'm looking for, like the normalized torque, is like as honestly as far above 3 as possible, especially for elite runners. I just see that as being like helping to optimize running performance, just making sure like your quads are strong enough to help move you as fast as possible. Same with hamstrings. The number that I typically shoot for here is like closer to 2.5. I rarely see people above 2.5, like without some specific hamstring loading. So honestly, this is like fairly good. To me, it's interesting that left is weaker quad and right is weaker hamstring. I honestly don't know too much what to do with that right now. Hopefully he doesn't get injured, but if he gets injured, this could be interesting data to have as, again, a baseline. I also did ham quad ratios. I don't really like this ratio, but I did it. So
Get the hell out of here, ratios. Are you kidding me right now? I'm like, oh, you're better than that.
But that's why I keep the absolute values too. So, and I mean, if we just look at the ratio, both the ratios are better than like what is technically like a goal or standard. Like that's the standard that we often see is like 0.6 for those. So he's got 0.71 and 0.84. I didn't really talk to him about this at all. I cared more about the the peak torque numbers,
and good for good reasoning. So
yeah, exactly. Again, I just have them to have them.
So what else do we got? What else we got cooking up in here? What else is like really big?
On this,
yeah,
like
like
numbers.
anything else like jarring? Because I'm looking at your abduction and adduction. Like
Yeah.
anything from
So
that?
I actually, his abduction and adduction were both like really good. Um, so like for abduction, let's see, I have norms here. I always forget the norms. Abduction, the norm for like a general population is 1.72 and adduction is 1.97. So I just say try and be as far above 2 as possible. So
Mm.
2.19 normalized. That's a bilateral one. So unilaterally, it's probably a little less. Um, and then obviously no symmetry metric there. And then for a deduction, 95% symmetry, which is roughly as expected. Um, and so I put a note on the left side. That was the second side tested. So technically it had already worked 3 times maximally when we were testing the right side. So that it being like the left technically being a little weaker in quotes on this could just be from fatigue. So again, I don't really like care too much about like the symmetry of these, and just that like both of these are pretty far above 2 is pretty impressive to me. Um yeah, and I kind of want to compare these numbers to another athlete we have who's also a very fast runner, because it's kind of interesting. They're like almost inverses in a way,
Mm.
where for this person, he was just over 3 Newton meters per kilogram in knee extension. And then knee flexion, he was 2.5 on his right, or 2.52, and 2.37 on his left. So both of those stronger than like knee extension, knee flexion stronger than this first athlete. But then as the opposite, okay, get out of here. As the opposite, for hip abduction, he was significantly weaker than the other person. I think a whole. Okay, no, he's what, like 0.3 off from the first person, and then roughly like zero point 0.5 Newton meters per kilogram off in adduction as well. Um, so unfortunately I don't have running data yet for the second person, and I'm curious how like his running data will compare to the first person here. But I guess before I go to this running data that you can kind of see down here, do you have any questions on like these things?
Not yet. Let me see that running data, and then maybe I will.
Cool. These also did help inform exercise prescription too, but I figure I can talk about that a little bit more when we do the running stuff. So this is the Run Easy data that I have. What if I go in a little bit? Can we see both of them? Whoop. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we got it.
I'm like, okay, there. So that I know I've talked about this before, but just if people haven't seen those, the previous episodes, the typical protocol that I use for this is so this is through Run Easy, which is just a gait analysis software that we have. It uses a belt that goes along the sacrum, and then people can just run like normal on it. I usually say that it gives numbers on things that we can't see, and then I also take a video, and then it's like it's comparing things that we can see and can't see, and how do those go together. So I normally start with a 3-minute like warm up normalization period on a treadmill. There's research to show that it takes like 3 to 5 minutes for gait to normalize on a treadmill, and at least on the Run Easy, like when I've done this with people and like be collecting the whole time, I see that usually after 3 minutes gait normalizes, and that it doesn't really change too much after that. So I stick with 3 minutes just for time's sake. And then I do, as you can see in the duration here, I do a minute of recording just to have enough data points. It collects every 5 seconds. So a decent amount of data points to have averages here. So first thing on the left here is dynamic instability. That is kind of like, that's looking at like contralateral pelvic drop and then just like lateral translation of the hips. What we see with this person is he has really good numbers for dynamic instability. So Run Easy has a color coding system in this, like this green color here is like I guess the best green color you can have. And you get that at 20% asymmetry, so that he's like way lower than that is pretty cool. So he's 13.3% on his left and 12.6% on his right. This is why I don't like ratios, because then if you go over here on the asymmetries section, it says that that's a 2.6% asymmetry, which yes, is not wrong, but it's such a, like, because the numbers are so relatively small, any small difference, like the absolute difference there is 0.7, is really not that large of an absolute difference. Again, because the numbers are small, it makes the asymmetry between them look larger than it actually is. I tell that to people a lot, especially when we're looking at like the milliseconds on impact duration or ground contact time. Again,
We
I
hate
thought
ratios.
yeah, yeah, not a big fan. They are useful, like to look at in this context, because I feel like every runner is like, I'm asymmetric. I don't want to be asymmetric. So they like looking at these numbers. But to me, that's where I also have the context of the absolute ratio too, or the absolute difference. What's interesting to me is just the dynamic instability piece, like his correlating with his hip strength as well. Like his hips are really strong and he's not very unstable at all. So that's usually, it's not like a one-to-one comparison. Like there's other like running's a dynamic movement, right? So it's hard to just correlate strength with good stability of the hips. Like there's other like motor processes that are involved with that. But I just think, to me, this demonstrates that like he has the baseline capacity to be stable, and then his body, especially because he's such an efficient runner, like his body is being like using that stability, or that hip strength capacity, to help with his efficiency. Yeah, do you have any thoughts, comments there before I go to the like impact things?
Don't give me the impact. Give me
Yeah,
all the impact.
so impact loading is their like overall metric that's a conglomeration of impact magnitude and impact duration. Impact magnitude, I often tell people, is most easily thought of as ground reaction force, but it's really not. It's kind of a mix of ground reaction force and then like, I'll just say the force absorbed like during initial loading, because impact magnitude is an acceleration, and it's more like the amount of force that like reaches the belt at your sacrum after you hit the ground. So it is impacted by how hard you're hitting the ground, but it's also impacted by how much work your muscles are doing to keep you stable, I guess. So we can see impact magnitude. He's got a lower impact magnitude on his left and higher on his right. And then if we see the overall asymmetry here, there's a decent asymmetry there, 12.4%, with the right being higher here. To me, this is actually pretty interesting, because then if we look back at his strength in knee extension, we can see that his left is weaker. So I think one way that this could be interpreted is that like just by looking at these numbers and not by looking at the strength numbers, you could be like, oh, the left is really good. We got to improve the right. And that like the right strength is bad. But part of me wonders if it's almost the opposite, where the because the left is weaker, the body's kind of like shielding the left and forcing more work through the right side. So it looks like the right side is worse here,
Mm-hmm.
but it's actually the left side that's kind of driving that.
Right. And so talking about the impact magnitude.
Yep.
So if you land, let's say, so I guess my easiest correlation I can make is like imagine like someone doing a like a drop jump, like a single leg drop jump.
Mm-hmm.
Like so if someone is landing stiff, so like you just
Mm-hmm.
land not a whole lot of, ankle and knee bend or hip
Mm-hmm.
flexion, would that drive the impact magnitude up because there is less compliance? I don't know if compliance is the best word, but
Yeah.
there's less attenuation throughout the joints and it's just going straight up through. So like,
Yes.
okay.
That's almost exactly how I like describe impact magnitude, and that's where impact duration comes in too. Um, Impact duration is how long it takes um, for the force to reach the belt, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And you want a longer impact duration because that's saying that like you are attenuating force through some
Mm.
joint excursion, and that like your muscles are actively working to absorb that force. I'll say in quotes. Um,
Yeah. What's like your bandwidth though for when it becomes too much? Because it's like you want to be springy because you don't want to just like sink, and not be elastic, but you also don't want to be stiff and not like, it's like
yeah,
kind of feels like a Goldilocks and kind of like what's your bandwidth there?
yeah, that's a good question. That's where part of me doesn't love that like these are color coded because impact duration is also highly correlated to ground contact time because it's just a portion of the ground
Right.
contact time, right?
Yeah.
So therefore at faster speeds where you have a lower ground contact time, a higher cadence potentially, there's going to be a lower impact magnitude. So it technically looks worse because it's a lower impact magnitude, but that's just because you're running faster, right? So your impact metrics are going to look worse when you're running faster. So that's where and actually I talked to the people at Run Easy about this too. They have awesome customer service. So like I have only good things to say about like Run Easy as a product. Um, but again, that's where they were talking to me about looking at impact duration also as a ratio with ground contact time too. And so you want impact duration to be a larger percentage of ground contact time as well. You
Mm.
obviously it can't be like, if your ground contact time is 195 in his case, we can't have impact duration be like 150 or something like that because there is also a propulsive phase of ground contact. Um, but it would be great for it to be close to half of the total ground contact time because then it's essentially like landing phase going immediately into a propulsive phase. Um, so I actually didn't do the calculation here, but I mean, let me just quickly pull it
It's
up
like
on my on my
30%.
phone.
Well, I
Yeah,
guess
let's see,
less than
60
that.
divided by 195. Oh yeah, it's 30.1%. Um, or 30.7%. Sorry. So, I'd say that's probably good to me. We could potentially work on it a little bit. But I kind of think this is just a product of like the speed that he was running and like his cadence and such. So, yeah, what I do think is interesting, going back to that, like potential weakness on his left side. Again, this is where like the numbers can tell kind of different stories. Is so his impact duration is actually higher on his left side than his right side. And there's a 4%, 4.3% asymmetry side to side there. But what's interesting to me is, so we know his left side's weaker, and we also see that his ground contact time is shorter on his left side than his right side. So part of me wonders if his lower impact, or his higher impact duration, is actually I'll say a symptom of weakness, where he can't develop power as quickly. So or I guess can't develop force as quickly, so less power on his left side. So it just takes a little bit more time to achieve higher force values, especially given that his impact magnitude is lower on this side. Again, could that be a function of the higher impact duration? Maybe. But going with that, like shielding the left side hypothesis, if there's even less force going through his left side, but taking a longer amount of time to attenuate that force, that is a sign to me that like we should really be working on his left-sided strength, which again we can see from up here is less. It's not significantly less, like it's still 92%, so it's not like a bad thing. But the closer I'd be curious if we can get this closer to 3.0, but especially both of these closer to 3.0, will it change these numbers? It may not. But that's honestly what I took away from this. And so then exercise prescription wise, he's already doing a lot of running. He's doing 2 lifts a week that are like general runner, like strength focused. But I still suggested doing some, honestly, not even like too heavy of things, because again, I don't want to like take away from his other training. Like this should all be supplementary stuff, but just a little extra quad strengthening thing. So I just gave him some Bulgarian split squats and really just keeping body weight or lightweight for those. But just to give a little bit of extra load to the quads. And my thought process is, like over time, that should help to even these numbers out a little bit. Yeah. What other thoughts, questions do you have? I feel like I talked a lot there.
So I got nothing. I think that's well, actually, no, I take it back. So I'm gonna play not an advocate here, not devil's advocate. I'm going to ask a question that I don't know if you'll enjoy. So you're prescribing split squats. Why, if you're looking for adaptation of quad, and you're not trying to accumulate excessive fatigue due to already a mass training stimulus, why not prescribe like high force, low time, low rep, like isometric for knee extension?
Good question. Didn't think about that. I do partially worry about doing too high of a force for an isometric. Just because my biggest thing was I don't want to cause soreness. Because I don't want soreness to limit anything. That, especially what you were talking about, could be useful for especially developing that power component that I was talking about. So that could be something like somewhere we can progress to or like change to in the future. But yeah, I guess I was mostly thinking about soreness and trying to like limit
mitigate
soreness.
soreness. Yeah, I I would argue anything that is non-fatiguing. So like those really quick high bursts contractions should help to mitigate that. I don't have any anecdotal evidence to support that, but that's just like my own background. So I would maybe I'll give it a try and let you know. Maybe I'll give it a try tomorrow and let you know if I'm absolutely cooked in my patellar tendon.
Yeah, maybe that's something I can try too, because then that could be a reason to like we could especially be prescriptive with that as well, where like we could use the repeaters function with the Tindeq,
Hmm.
um, and just have like a okay, try and hit this metric, um,
Yeah.
like hit this number. So it could be interesting to play with there. So I'll do that and get back to you. See how
Cool.
he feels about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I got nothing else. So yeah, I think answered all the other questions I got, and I'm interested to see kind of where this goes.
Cool. Um, well, all right. That has been another episode of Data Nerds. As always, thank you for tuning in this long. So if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, what are you doing? This is best watched.
On
And that,
YouTube,
yes, on our YouTube at Reading Rehab.
get on
Um,
YouTube.
yeah, and we have our Instagram at Reading Rehab Pod.
If you don't
Thanks.
follow us on Instagram, you're a loser. Just kidding. We all love you.